لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I make dua to Allah Ta'ala that you're all well. May Allah Azza wa Jal grant shifa to those who are sick and unwell. May Allah Ta'ala look after your needs, physical and spiritual. For those in particular who have had to cancel weddings, marriages, nikahs on the one hand, and those who have been unable to attend for condolences on the other, where people have passed away, I extend my sympathy and I make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make things easy for you, to grant you reward in this difficult situation. My general advice today, relating to all of us, is an area of knowledge which we can uncover and explore, which we may have neglected in the past. And here I'm referring to social history. I'm referring to talking to our parents and, where possible, even if this is virtually over the phone, our grandparents, and vice versa, parents and grandparents talking to the children. What we can do is, through our parents and grandparents, we can access knowledge and information about past generations, because they can then relate to their grandparents and parents. And this interaction between the generations is culturally extremely valuable. And this is an opportunity to do it. From our teachers, Maulana Fadli Haqsab, his father, Maulana Ismail Wadi rahimahullah ta'ala from Blackburn, he passed away a couple of years ago. He would gather the sons together from time to time, the children, and he would talk of old times. This was part of how they were brought up. And Maulana says that our relationship with our father was not one of father and son, it was one of friends. We used to be happy when our father would come into the room and talk. So in the present context, we see that there's often a breakdown of communication between parents and children. And I feel that this opportunity, if you're at home and you have extra time, is a golden one for us to rebuild those bridges and talk of past experiences. Now, for many of us, we can relate through our grandparents' generation, if not our parents' generation. For me, it's my parents' generation. My father was born before the partition of the subcontinent, so he was born before the war, the Second World War. And this was a major event which affected everybody in the whole world. And I'm sure that many of the listeners are in a similar situation where it's either your parents or your grandparents. Now, that aspect of what happened in those days, those memories will be brought back to life. How people persevered in those difficult moments, and how they spent time, and how they mustered their inner resources, and they were patient through those moments, and how they endured each day and those experiences. And this is a golden opportunity. And children, when they have something interesting to listen to, they become intrigued, wide-eyed, excited, and it becomes something they can relate to, and it forms their sense of identity. So whatever your ethnicity and wherever you may be from, my particular point is that those of you who have access to elder family members, or vice versa, if you have children, grandchildren, and you can talk to them, perhaps this is an opportunity to share with them those experiences. I find that a very pleasant way of learning history, and Islamic history too, is reading through biographical material. To give you an example of a text which you might want to dip into and share with your family, is Tarikh Dawat Azimat by Sheikh Ali Mian Nadwi rahimahullah ta'ala. You can get it in English, you can get it in Urdu, you can get it in Arabic. The original work is in Urdu, it's been translated into Arabic and English. And what he does, the author, he's a historian and a big muhaddith and scholar, he gives you a historical backdrop of what was happening in the time And then after that historical backdrop, in the introduction to each chapter of the particular personality he's talking about, it's a biographical work on different personalities through the history of Islam. He then takes you to that person's own biography and the events which happened in their life. So this is an example. But my specific point here was that you can learn history and it becomes far more interesting through people rather than through events. When you learn about the biography of that person, you also automatically pick up on the events which took place. From our mashayikh, we have Sheikh Zakaria rahimahullah ta'ala and his famous autobiography named as Abiti and Yad Ayyam, available in English and in Urdu. And you feel as though you're sitting with the Sheikh and you learn so much about his various journeys. His first journey to Hajj was on camelback. And he talks about how in his youth he would sleep and fall into a deep sleep. And he talks about how he would sleep until the sun would burn his skin, sunburn. And he talks about how the group he was traveling with on that early journey, on camelback, his first Hajj, on steamer and on camelback. He says that we would have turns to cook and I didn't know how to cook. And he remembers how he boiled a big pot of water and then threw in rather a lot of salt and then threw in the rice to no avail because he didn't know how to boil rice. He'd never done it before. And people in the group, they were insisting you have to do your part of the work. And there was an elderly couple and an Arab couple from Yemen or some other country, and he says they observed this and they were amused and they took responsibility for my cooking. He says they made my life easy. So those memories, they're both interesting, very human, and then there's the religious dimension as well. And that's the case with our parents and grandparents, elders. So this is an area of knowledge which we can all dip into and enjoy. And it will be a positive way of passing time together with the points which I always emphasize. We must perform our salah on time. We must perform salah in the family where possible, when there's no self-isolation issues. If there's a couple in the house that can read together, keeping the distance. So basically, this is so with these daily routines. This is a specific point, and it can become a routine, a daily routine where we sit, we talk, we learn about events that happened in the past, we relate those to the present events, and these moments, I'm sure, inshallah, if all things go well, inshallah, may Allah help us in these difficult moments. When we pass these weeks and months, they'll become memorable moments which will have spent well, and it's an opportunity to strengthen those relationships. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us tawfiq and make what I've said a source of benefit. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.